The following program was provided by an independent producer solely responsible for its content. The opinions expressed do not necessarily represent the views of this station, its staff, board of directors, or underwriters.
Hello, I'm Carl Seidel, host of The People's View, sponsored by the Nashua City Republican Committee. And if you want, we meet at the Crown Plaza the second Thursday of every month. And if you want to find out more information, you can go to our website at nashuagop.org.
Welcome to The People's View.
Hello, and help me welcome Kevin Avard, our senator from District 12.
Thanks for having me, Carl. Appreciate it.
I'm glad you're in District 12 and running again. It's nice that you were able to do that.
It's been a privilege. It's been a privilege and an honor.
You've been a very active senator. I think you've probably surprised a lot of the people up there, and you've done quite a bit of work.
I'm positive I surprised a lot of people up there. And I think a lot of them thought I would be a bull in a china closet. But I think there's a learning curve, just like when you're state rep, there's a learning curve. There's a learning curve as a senator. And you learn very quickly that you don't get anything accomplished unless you learn to have discussions. Your door's got to be open. And you try to build coalitions, both in the House side and on the Senate side. And we're very, very accomplished at doing that. I think one of my first bills, I actually reached out to the Dean of the Senate, Mr. Lou D'Alessandro.
Yes.
Yeah, he's kind of a pillar, you know, and he co-sponsored my FRM bill. And I think they tried a couple of times to pass it, and then it never got anywhere. And you know, it's funny, just being nice to people, you can get a little further than being.
You found a way to cooperate in certain areas that.
He co-sponsored it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we got it passed. And that was kind of, you know, when I was a state rep and we were on the redress of grievance. You know, a lot of people said, well, that was worthless. The whole redress thing was worthless, but it really wasn't, because it allowed people to voice their concerns, whether it was, you know, a mortgage fraud, whether it was the Attorney General's office going after people without cause, or court situations. It allowed the people that were falling through the cracks to speak out. And I kind of carried that mantle into the Senate. And you not believe how many Democrats have come into my door, sat in my office and asking for help. Whistleblowers, women of domestic violence, and from areas that I never thought would come, and they sat, and you know, my door was open. And I think because of my cutting the teeth in the House with the redress, it showed people that I'm open, and I'm willing to listen, and didn't find that refuge in their own party.
Well, you did have a way of organizing that that was much more effective, because I know the first time when we weren't even a committee or anything, we were ignored essentially, and you got people to listen, which is a great accomplishment.
Yep.
Especially up there when everybody's time is so valuable.
And you know, I think one of the things is people don't want to get into the messy stuff, and hats off to Frank Edelblut, who worked behind the scenes. You know, he ran for governor. He engaged in some of the areas where people just don't want to take the time. They've got their pet projects, and they're very myopic in their vision up there. But Frank spread himself out, you know, working with small businesses when it came to regulations. There was one organization up north, Pilgrim Foods. He called me up for help. Because you know they're paying like $400,000 just in attorney fees for compliance. He only employs about 74 people, and you know he's getting up here. You know the overregulation is strangling him, and so he called me up and he gave me a tour of the plant and everything like that, and I said, well, I'll do what I can. The next day, Frank Edelblut calls me up. Hey, I saw you up at Pilgrim Food. Yeah. How did you know? And he says, well, I saw your name on the visitor list. So, you know, hats off to him. He did a great campaign.
He did.
And I admire anybody who's willing to get into the thick of it, with the businesses or with people,
Well, for a first-year term, he did a heck of a lot. He was on 3 different committees. Finance is bad enough, but then he took on pensions and other
Yeah.
things.
I think he's got a good career, and he's honest, and he's very, well, a CPA. I mean, who wants to be a CPA? He's very
Well,
analytical,
He's a businessman.
Yeah.
And he did a heck of a job in setting up his company, too, if you ever got the story on that.
Yeah, I did, and he started on a kitchen table.
Right.
So, he's living the American dream, and he wants to pass that on. And it seems as though a lot of the businesses are struggling with overregulation, with
Definitely.
higher medical costs. I was just talking to one of the auto dealers the other day. We sat down, we just talked for about an hour, and he said, I'm paying for these premiums because my employees are counting on this. I've got some people that have worked for me for 25 years, but the deductible keeps going up, and the coverage is going down, and my premiums are going up. Mm-hmm. And I'm sticking it out with these guys. I mean, I could retire, but he's staying in business for his employees. And you kind of scratching your head like, we thought this was all going to be the cure-all, right? Everybody said the ACA was going to make everything cheaper, $2,000, $2,500 cheaper, and you were going to be able to keep your own doctor.
Mm-hmm,
and come to find out, according to Gruber, they were just lying to us. Oh well, move on, right?
Yeah.
But the small businesses are still having to shoulder the burden, and we need to address that. That's one of the real big concerns.
I think all in these rules and regulations, we have to do that. If you remember back in 2011 and 12 when we had that business committee to look into that, and we started a few things, and lo and behold, they sort of stopped after the 2012 session ended.
It's almost like you have to start all over again.
Yeah.
And working in the Senate, though, I think there's a great spirit with our Republican caucus anyway to address some of the business needs. We did lower taxes. We kept our promise. BET and BBT, not by a great amount, but my gosh.
But by enough to show that you get a little bit more, might even get a better return.
Well, it's crazy. We offered it, and everybody's pulling their hair, and we're hearing all this crying, and at the Senate, we're gonna lose that. We're gonna do. We have 3 legs to our economy,
Oh, yeah.
and all the drama, and we're gonna be in debt $100,000. By golly, we got. Reaganomics seems to work, right? You'll lower the burden, and it increases the revenue flow.
Yeah.
And a lot of us want.
Expansion of the businesses.
That's right. More money stays in their pocket. Hey, New Hampshire's open for business. I was actually going to offer the rooms and meals tax reduction, only on the state side, not on the city side, because local municipalities really depend on that, but maybe 1%. Boy, well, I don't know if we were ready for that just yet, but
Probably 0.5% will sell better.
well, that's
Where your fallback period.
we negotiate.
I'm sorry.
It's a negotiation.
You go.
Not a full percent, but maybe a 0.5%.
Yeah.
But that sends a signal that we're open for business, and we want to show that we're concerned about the needs of the businesses. We need to grow businesses. It's the only way to continue in this state. We're aging out. Everybody knows it, and we've got pension problems that we're going to have to deal with.
Yeah.
We have an energy crisis in that we have some of the highest energy costs. I was in a committee with Senator Bradley yesterday. Nobody has the answer.
Kind of hard to do that. You need to import that cheaper electricity, or you need to import cheaper gas, or whatever.
Well, and of course, the Massachusetts Supreme Court had a ruling with the PUC, which doesn't allow, I believe it was Spectra, to augment their lines. It wouldn't be even augment them in New Hampshire. It was just down there, and that fell through. A lot of people were hoping for that, so that when that energy crunch comes in the wintertime, we'll be able to address those needs. I'm going to be talking to a number of people just to get to the root. What is the root of the problem? Is it the RPS, or is it Reggie? I mean, I can't believe people are introducing Reggie and saying that this is going to lower costs. So some people are advocating more solar, some more wind, hydro. There's no quick fix, and nuclear power plants are phasing out, and at least 2 now have phased out. So we've lost the coal burning plant. We had one of the cleanest coal burning plants, and now so we used to be very diverse, and now we're narrowing our capacity. So we've got to address it. We've got to make hard decisions, otherwise businesses won't come up this way. And if businesses don't come up this way, the jobs won't be here. We'll educate our children, and they'll leave the state. And we can't have that.
Yeah, and one other area that I'm not sure anybody's really paying attention to since 2012 was the loss carry forward, which is used. I mean, this is what they're making fun of with Trump. He lost a lot because he invested a lot. But you're not going to get people to invest a lot unless they can make it back in the taxes that they don't pay to make up for their losses, because that's, you don't pay taxes that year, you lost it. But if you then pay taxes the next year, you should be able to use some of that, if not all of it, to offset the taxes. And that's where you get people to invest and grow their companies.
Right. And there are other areas like that. There's healthcare costs. We have some of the highest in the country, if not the highest. We have, I think, 26 or 28 hospitals. 26 of them are nonprofit. We address the certificate of need. And I had an argument with one of the senators on the floor. Not an argument, just a debate. And the certificate of need, meaning that, well, you can't open up a new facility, a new medical facility, unless these trustees approve it. So the trustees are the trustees of the hospitals and whatnot, and so they don't want competition.
That's right.
And so they're not going to give you a certificate of need. And so that phased out, and so a new thing came. We call it the son of the certificate of need. Which basically does the same thing. It doesn't allow you to set up shop, a medical clinic or anything within a certain radius of the hospitals. And if you look at the map, there's like a big circle here and a big circle here and a big circle here. And, it's funny, but it's not, because you still can't. And the argument was, well, Senator, and she was arguing with me, if we get rid of the certificate of need, then this whole free market thing will come into New Hampshire.
Wow.
And it's on tape. It's on tape.
Really?
And, I'm trying to be gracious, but it's what we want. Instead of this whole floodgate of jobs going to Massachusetts, it's time to bring in competition, lower the costs, and let them set shop and let
them fight it out and handle it the right way.
It's a free market thing. If we don't have a free market, then just admit it.
I mean, that is ridiculous, the way those imaging tests, for example, can vary by a factor of 2 or more.
Right.
Depending on where you go. My son went to Massachusetts on something. He has one of those highly deductible type of things. So he had to shop, essentially. And he found it was cheaper in Massachusetts to do an MRI.
My wife works in Massachusetts, and she's in the she does those type of things. She's in mammography and X-ray tech. She's in a number of different modalities, and she's been there for about 27 years.
Oh.
Her mother 50. So they're involved with the industry. They see firsthand what's going on.
Yeah.
And, they're doing the 3D imaging, and some people are decrying the 3D imaging, but for women, there's less callbacks with that type of thing. So is it worth the investment? I think so. These are life and death situations, but competition is what drives costs down.
And makes you more efficient.
Exactly. And it does. And it drives service, it drives the cost down. But if you have a closed market, then you can charge what you want. And the hospitals are very grateful for those who voted for this Medicaid expansion, because they are definitely going to profit from this. I'm not so sure that the people will, the taxpayers will, but.
Think there's going to be any problem getting there to put their contribution into the whole thing?
Repeat that?
Aren't they supposed to make a certain percentage contribution to the fund?
I think so, but we'll see how that works. I'm not exactly
that's what,
sure.
I don't think there's any penalty if they don't. It's just sort of like a gentleman's agreement.
We'll see how that works out for us. But there gets to be a point where people are seeing 50,000 people now that are covered under this Medicaid expansion, by the way, and there's no work requirement. When you size that up against the employer who's paying for the premium, and seeing the premiums go up and the deductibles go up, and wondering how they're going to pay for this. And now Nashua, by the way, has become a welcoming city for a lot of these refugees, which will be put onto the system. Well, some people are claiming, well, we're going to get the federal money. Well, it's going to run out. Ask the schools.
Yeah.
You get a little federal money, and then okay, now here's your startup fee, and now you're going to have to pay for the rest of it. So that means that there's going to be more services that are going to be required, and the local taxpayers are going to have to pay for it, unless those who advocate for all of this new stuff want a sales or income tax, and I'm not voting for that. So if you don't want a sales or income tax, please vote for
Well, I
me.
don't think we have to go into that. I think we have to do something. We have to be inventive of how we handle our money and make sure we're getting value for the money that we're spending. And we can make sure that everybody is more economical, economic validity as far as their business is concerned.
Well, we're doing what we can to help, and I think a lot of people are still worried about regulations. Workers' comp came down a little bit. We had a lot of discussions over workers' comp, and no legislation really was pushed forward. But I think some people got the signal because this next go around, there could be a club saying, hey, look, you've got to lower the rates, or you're going to get a fee for, it's going to be tough. So they listened and they dropped it a little bit. So hopefully, they're watching to see who gets elected.
More. Well, what do you think about this one-stop shop that was so hot in 2012, and they haven't moved on it? Where you have one center, a place that you can go and find out all the rules and regulations for your business without jumping around to 6 different bureaus.
I don't know much about it. I like the concept, but it doesn't seem to have.
Well, there's just been talking about it.
gain
I mean,
any traction.
Canada does it right across the border.
We need to do something. I know a lot of people the bureaucracy moves so slow.
Yeah.
I've been on 2 committees that I've chaired, and then I've been on other committees that are still going and going and going. And people don't want to get to the chase. They don't want to get to the root of it, and they want to let things just drag on. Well, let's just study this a little more and study this a little more and study this. And then, you know what? How about we do an audit? And then we do another audit. And then we do another audit and another audit. I've handed you a couple of audits.
Oh, yeah, and I've just been talking to somebody from that is on the committee for HHS, and they have things on that audit for 6, 7 years, and they still haven't done anything on it.
So if it's a good idea, we'll study it.
Yeah.
But
you gotta have administration being led with somebody who wants to get something done.
Which leads me into we're all scratching our heads. We had a budget, and the governor had a budget, and she, without going into too much detail, she really padded it, and then left it. And we said this isn't acceptable, so we handed her a reasonable budget, and which funded the opioid, the disability, DD wait list, the hospitals, everything was funded, and then some. And she vetoed it because we wanted to lower taxes. And it was a political stunt that we're all scratching our heads like, wait a minute, this was
There's no win on that.
there was no win. And the people that are on the disability
Right.
wait list are suffering, and they're still suffering.
And it's grown.
And it went, well, yeah, it went from like 135, 140, now it's 166.
Yeah.
And, you know, she pulled on our heartstrings with her commercial, with her child. And we understand, okay, we understand that you connect with some
Yeah.
people in this community. But then, now, what, almost a year later,
Yeah.
those people that are depending on that funding are still waiting.
Right.
And that's not fair. It's not fair to them. They want to live, you know, there's not a single Republican that I know of that would begrudge the most needy in our communities to help them out. That's what we're about.
And she goes on the air saying how much she did to contribute to
Well, that's
welfare.
the scratching head moment. And we're all looking at each other, and we're getting red in the face because, wait a minute, we did the work, made the
Yeah.
tough decisions, and then you vetoed it. We had to override her veto, and she's coming in for the trophy shot.
Right.
Hey, look what I did.
She didn't do any
How
of
does that work? You
I
know?
don't know, but I don't even want to send her to the federal government to see how she worked there.
It's awful. I mean, there are a number of press releases out now, and now we're asking about these no-bid contracts that were
That's right.
approved. Come on, Maggie. You know, there's a right-to-know
Right.
request on that. Let's take care of the DD. Let's fund the opioids. I mean, she's only spent about a third of it. Her czar,
Right.
her drug czar,
Yeah.
resigned in disgrace.
Yeah.
There's just a whole level of things. And, you know, she never told the Senate president when she left state because he was the governor at that time, you know.
Uh-huh.
So, you know, I think Governor Lynch did a much better job at running the state.
Oh,
than-
definitely.
than,
Well, he was a businessman.
Yeah.
He had a little bit of that attitude, but they don't even have their final expenses for the
her
last
reporting.
fiscal year.
She signed into law, and she's not abiding by the very laws that she
Right.
signed in. And so Senator Morse is getting a little frustrated because she's not following the law.
Right.
She's taking credit for everything that the Senate did.
Mm-hmm.
And I wonder where the media is. Why aren't they challenging her on this? I don't get it.
Mm-hmm.
There are press releases that are going out. I've sent out a few. DD wait list and a couple of others, and Senator Moore, Senator Daniels, Senator Carson. And we're all wondering, well, you know,
Yeah.
what gives? Why, you know, and nobody's coming clean.
The media is protecting them, I think, in a certain way.
I think a lot of people are getting very frustrated, and with this WikiLeaks thing coming out about, you know, all these emails, you know, we're seeing there's a pattern here of shutting down the people's voices. This state overwhelmingly voted for Bernie, and it didn't seem to translate into, you know, the delegates. And come to find out, Debbie Wasserman Schultz was part of a coup, if you will,
Yeah,
you know.
yeah.
Wink, wink, nod, nod. And then we find out that, oh, she resigns, and immediately she is brought into the Clinton campaign. So it's okay to shut down the people's voices, and then you get rewarded by getting a better
raise. Yeah.
So if she becomes the president, will she do the same with Lois Lerner?
Yeah.
Who pleaded the fifth and shut down the Tea Party's people, their voices? Will she have an enemies list of deplorables and unredeemables? Ladies and gentlemen, unredeemable, not even God says that. He doesn't.
No, I say it's a good analogy.
You know, so... Yeah.
Well, she must think she's above that.
And I thought the utmost hubris in the last debate where she was quoting, well, she was saying her public comments versus her private comments, and then she reverts to Abraham Lincoln. But I cannot see Abraham Lincoln at a time when our country was so divided, coming out and saying, you know, there's unredeemables and deplorables. What would we be as a nation if he'd have said that at some point? We need I think both candidates have flaws.
But, one thing that I don't see them bringing up, we had a number of presidents that had those kind of flaws. You have Johnson, he used rough language all the time, no matter who was there.
He's the one who grabbed the beagle by the ears, right?
Yeah. And you
Can't do that today.
no, you had Nixon, you had even Harry Truman used to have some.
He was before my time. But.
All right. I was only quite young at the time, but and they talk about Ulysses Grant. Remember, and Lincoln said,
drunk.
"Yeah, well, what kind of whiskey does he drink? I'll buy a barrel for all my generals." But sometimes they're crude, but they get the job done.
At this point, yeah, it's definitely not a personality contest. And I was a Rand Paul supporter. I then went to Cruz, and I kept my word that who the people put up there, I will support. Rough language. Just pausing in my mind. I think of Jesus, and when a woman was caught in adultery and was brought to Jesus, and he's writing on the ground, and they said, the law says stone her. First of all, where was the guy? Second of all, he said, well, you that are without sin, cast the first stone. And everybody had to reflect. Did we ever say anything that was wrong in our life? I challenge anybody to say that I've never said things that I'm embarrassed about. Trump definitely said some things that would be, and there's probably more. But now we're looking at a world that is volatile. We have China with Russia doing war games. You have ISIS just scattered abroad. We have an executive branch which totally disrespects our Constitution, and goes to Libya without Congress declaring war on them, and does a war. Now ISIS is growing and growing and growing, and instead of putting a halt to this, now we're saying, well, let's bring in those refugees into America, and let's take care of them. And the people are, when I knock on a door, people are sick of it. Nashville is now a welcoming city. Well, we can have a bleeding heart, but we're going to have to pay for this. And we're also going to be putting our people at risk because the vetting
is bad.
So, do we go for somebody who's going to build a wall and work at protecting us, or are we going to go to somebody who consistently lies to the American people and shuts down the people's voice? Anyway, that's what we're here. We're on the people's voice, right?
Okay. Well, thank you very much for spending your time with me, and good luck in your re-election.
Thanks for having me, and it's always been an honor. And ladies and gentlemen, this was my mentor.
Oh.
So,
anyway,
I hope
we
you
had
take ownership of that.
Back in 2010, we ran as a group, and I was very proud of the people that we had.
Yeah, we did a good job, I think. So.
You and Sean and I did a lot. Well, we had a difference, and I think we did what we said we were going to do.
And that's one thing, if I can leave with the voters, is I've kept my promise and I've kept my word, and I will still do the same this time around. So.
Well, I know you will. I know you work hard, and hopefully we'll get somebody to implement the laws right.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Yep.
Very good.
The preceding program was provided by an independent producer solely responsible for its content. The opinions expressed do not necessarily represent the views of this station, its staff, board of directors, or underwriters.